we begin, as usual, with the Stony Brook Seawolves, particularly the men's and women's basketball teams, but we do have a new season starting here. The spring sports are just about to kick in, and we have a lot of business to take care of there, too. So men's and women's lacrosse, baseball and softball, no playoffs? Who cares? Still got to play the games, and at least one of the teams has a shot at an at-large bid. But guys, let's start with the basketball. Which would you rather start with? The winners, who of course are the women who maintain their winning streak, or the men who are struggling a little bit after hearing the rough news on Wednesday?
I was going to say, before anything, you got to dissect that. I mean, it's not just a small, in passing term. I mean, this is a game changer, not just for Stony Brook, but the entire conference. And a lot of folks, especially on social media, is invested in what's going on Stony Brook athletics. When, as you said, America East ruling this week, Stony Brook be ineligible to compete for East Conference postseason, meaning they're going to have to rely on at-large bids to get a shot in the playoffs. I mean, absolute game changer. And honestly, it's pretty messed up move, especially to the student athletes there who worked so hard. And basketball in particular, as we're about to discuss, those are two teams who are playing for a playoff spot to potentially win the conference and get a decent seed in the NCAA tournament representing the America East. That's gone. And they didn't know that was going to happen start of the season. And it's pretty messed up move to take that away from them, especially this late in the season.
Start of the season, start of last week, nobody knew this was going to happen. Yeah. Now, of course, there are those who do believe that the athletic department did know something like this was going to happen and basically waited for the other shoe to drop and, said, okay, we're not going to say anything until the conference does. And no one thought about this, and people forgot about it. I mean, there are two instances that people cite here. Instance number one, when Boston University announced they were jumping to the Patriot League, the America East voted to knock them out of the playoffs, and BU, similar to Stony Brook, was a threat, especially men's basketball. Now, with Hartford, of course, the decision was reversed. They were downgraded to Division III, and they said they were leaving the conference, but the decision was not to kick them out of the tournaments because, well, I guess you know what I'm thinking. And yes, I'm definitely calling shenanigans on it, and sour grapes and whatever other term you like to use, is that Hartford wasn't a threat anyway to win. So leave them in the tournament, put them in as a low seed. The top seed pretty much gets a bye if they have to face them, right? But Stony Brook, on the other hand, there are 6 sports right now in which they have a legitimate shot at an America East title in the tournament and therefore an automatic qualifier in the NCAA. Both basketball teams, both lacrosse teams, baseball and softball. And I've only scratched the surface. We could have swept. It wasn't that far out of the realm of possibility to do that.
Yeah, it's such a terrible move. Not only just because the student athlete paying for the price that athletics department and really a conference is choosing to do. It's the competitiveness just decreases. It just kills. A lot of that competitiveness that's there. We're going to discuss women's basketball, and it's really tough to get excited that not only do they have the best winning streak in the conference, they won 10. They squashed NGIT, who delivered their only conference loss this season, and pretty much showed that, hey, Stony Brook's the one running the show now, as opposed to how it was starting the conference season. It's tough to get excited over that for when at the end of the season, it's likely not going to matter because even if Stony Brook has the best record and they finish with only 1 loss in conference play, they're not going to get a chance. They've won 2 straight seasons. It's likely going to go to NJIT because they're the only team really showing any competitiveness so far in what's been outside of, those 2 top teams. There really hasn't been much standing in the way in terms of fighting for that top spot.
Well, at least as far as Stony Brook is concerned, because the 2 teams that have gone on 5-game winning streaks right behind them in the America East standings, Albany and Maine, they're now 9-2 and 8-3 in the conference. Albany's only a game behind the Seawolves, but Stony Brook already beat them. Same thing with Maine. So, yes, could these teams be thorns in the Steel's sides in the second half of the conference season? Absolutely. And they definitely picked the right time to get hot. And NJIT was hot early, but they've dropped to 5-5. So we're seeing a little bit of a shift right now in the American East Conference, but no one, at least one-on-one, has been able to pose a serious challenge to Stony Brook.
Right. And the men's side is similar too, just in the sense that, the projections were Vermont and Stony Brook, and that's out the window now, assuming this ruling stands. Because even though Stony Brook on the men's side, they're hitting a bit of a slump, they're not even going to prove, if they're worthy of a top seed or a middle seed, because they're not going to get a chance to play in the postseason rounds. And, it just, again, I don't know why folks would really want to tune in when it's almost a given that it's going to be Vermont's title in the men's side. And, it's just stupid ruling that not only does it hurt Stony Brook, but the conference as a whole, to where you're basically, just throwing away most of the postseason and giving some of the bottom teams, an extra leg up that really is not going to benefit them, because they're going to fall to, legitimate 1 seed or 2 seed.
Yeah, when I look at the women's team and the men's team, obviously I look at them differently, but with the women's team, I really feel for them because they do have a quality team, probably one of the best teams we've seen the women have. And, Matt, you said this the other night, it was one thing when they lost it this season to COVID, but this is completely different, right? This was amongst our, kind of like amongst the conference doing it to itself. And I also
somebody made a decision to do this. That's the thing. Or a group of people made a decision to do this. COVID is a natural disaster.
Right. So, but the women this year, because of the wins against the Power 5 conference, I think that was going to give them, provided that they won the conference tournament and, took home the regular season crown. I thought they were going to get a high seed or low seed in the NCAA tournament, which could have paid dividends. You could have seen, one of the women's team get a win, maybe even potentially in the NCAA tournament. That'd be huge for the basketball program to have something like that occur. And I think they have the team to potentially do that. So I think that's a real hit for them. And I think for the men in general, in particular, the way they played on Wednesday night, and then again, the back-breaking loss yesterday, I think they need the conference tournament to get in. There's no chance. There's no doubt about it. And I think you coach in a certain way to have that occur, right? There's a couple mantras that you can kind of go with. And in particular, when Ken, you brought up the Vermont team, you can always say, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a season. Eventually the odds are going to kind of go in your favor. And I think that's what you got to go with. And as you can continue to improve, you can kind of sell your team on the idea that we're getting better, we're improving, we're eventually going to do something against them. And when you look at the Vermont loss from, I guess it was last week, they cut into the deficit. They did some nice things and they forced Vermont to go to their bench, and they had one of their role players have an outstanding night. And I think you could sell the team on like that might not happen again, and you could get a shot at them.
I agree. So it's definitely too. As a player, you got to be thinking. You always want to give it your all, sure, but usually in this scenario, like I said, right now, it'd be interesting because Stony Brook would be fighting for a playoff seed. If you don't even have that, it's really tough to convince a lot of seniors, a lot of graduates, to where this is their last year to really, give it your all. Because what are you playing for? It's tough for these guys. Especially again, this was mid-season, going from one day, you're going to have a chance to the next day, and it looks like you're not getting a chance to prove to the rest of the conference where you really belong. And as you said, it's similar to what happened to Boston, obviously, and even JMU in the CAA, which Stony Brook is joining later this year. But, the difference with that is they were at least given a heads up before the season started. Hey, you're not going to be able to be eligible for these conference games. You're literally taking a team that's 19-2 on the women's side and a men's team, which was projected to be the other finalist across from Vermont, and tell them, sorry, those last 20 plus games y'all played doesn't matter. And to me, if you're a college senior, graduate especially, it's really tough to really step up and really show if it matters. I can understand on the women's side, you have the potential for an at-large bid or even a WNIT. But this men's team, they're falling, and I don't see them getting back up.
Well,
so they're only 5-4.
But Matt, I think the question arises, and let's go with the women's team first on this one. Do you think that the women's team can get an at-large bid with the Power 5 wins that they had early on in the season, and if they run the table in the America East?
It's going to be tough because with no tournament, the tournament changes everything. Teams get hot at the right time, and all kinds of crazy things go on. Anything can happen in the tournament. That's why you play the games, all those old cliches. But without the tournament to prove anything, it's going to be next to impossible. Now, if, let's say, for example, they lost in the final or something like that, and with the impressive record they had, even that would be tough, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility on the women's side. But the other thing about it, sympathy can only take you so far when you have all these slots to fill. And, put them in the play-in. The America East doesn't deserve 2 bids. Bottom line, okay? The Stony Brook is a class of the America East, and if it wins the America East, it should represent the America East well. But whoever comes up behind them, and the best chances right now are either UAlbany or Maine, they're not as good. Mm-hmm. And even though they have been beating up on the rest of the conference, especially the bottom half of the conference, and that's been the big knock on the conference. The bottom half really isn't any good. So, and that's been the knock in a lot of sports too. Women's lacrosse gets knocked for that all the time.
It's tough too because you're essentially also you're going to put Stony Brook in. You likely have to take another good team out. Really good team, especially. And just looking at the USA Today top 25 coaches poll, Stony Brook is receiving 1 vote. But it's tough to, it's going to be tough to prove if they should go in over a team getting more votes to them right now, like Oregon State at 11-5, or Florida at 15-6, or Drexel at 16-2. They're 16-2 and not even actually ranked, And there's other teams too, like teams that dropped out, like Duke. They're 13-6. It's really tough to really prove if they're going to be able to get in over the other when they're not going to get a chance to play in the conference tournament. To where if they lost, if it was a close game, you're right. America East really doesn't deserve 2 bids, but if there was another team that was able to match up to that talent level through the rest of the season, there's a very small chance that they could get one if they're able to, prove it that they deserve it over some of these other teams. But, you're not even going to get that chance now. And for Stony Brook, to me, you have a 1% chance at proving that you still make the NCAA tournament outside of winning the conference title for the America East. And it's going to take them running the table.
Well, let me put it this way, folks. Ethan Tam, of course, is the sports editor at Statesman. And put up a couple of days ago, right soon after the decision, at the request of Stony Brook, the Board of Presidents reconsidered this matter late last week, but unanimously reaffirmed their decision. In other words, okay, they wanted us out of there.
Yeah, that's
you know what?
From their competitive vantage point, it works because you have Stony Brook out, and as I said, you eliminate a huge opponent against you the rest of the way.
But it's
Stony Brook owns the
petty.
Especially. It is. It's absolutely 100% agreed.
How do these people have 6-figure jobs? It baffles me. How can they How can they do this to a bunch of student athletes? I mean, first of all, somebody says in another tweet, rules are rules. The rule is that the university presidents can vote, and it's put to a vote. Now, somebody did say that Stony Brook allegedly voted to ban BU way back when, but Albany voted to let them play.
Right, and that's true, but at the same time, the BU example and the JMU example, those were during the off-season. And I agree, it sucked then, it was the wrong decision then. It's still at least...
Midway through the season is ridiculous.
Right. You've already had Stony Brook teams in the fall compete and represent the America East and compete in the postseason. Hypothetically, had a team won, would it really be fair to say, yeah, the men's soccer team was able to represent Stony Brook in the NCAA tournament, but the women's lacrosse team can, even though the women's lacrosse team is better because Stony Brook is leaving at the end of this semester. It's just stupid, and again, it's just bad business because you kill that competitiveness. And why would you want to when you're pretty sure, unless something really really crazy happens, Albany's going to win women's lacrosse, right? Vermont's favorite. They're probably going to win men's basketball. Repeat for men's lacrosse as well, right? You just go down the list. UMBC, they're going to repeat for softball because their only opponent that was able to match up to them was Stony Brook, and better pitching rotation. They couldn't stop Coppersmith, so no one is. It's just bad business, and it just shows potential. Schools as well.
Here's the other thing. Okay, Albany and Binghamton, wherever one SUNY school goes, the others tend to follow. Okay, Albany and Binghamton voted to ban Stony Brook. He who lives by it dies by it. And I hope they get their comeuppance. What I really hope is that for Stony Brook to take legal action, get an injunction against it. That's what I really would like to see.
And that's definitely the process. Remember, we're supposed to interview Sean Halbron. Obviously, that got postponed because of this, and that's likely the next steps to where it's gonna go to court. And I don't know if we'll have the time for it, to be honest, just because how long it takes to get. Those.
Well, a final resolution. Here's the thing: a judge can put a stop to the proceedings until a decision is reached, and the decision can be reached after the season's over. And then the judge can say, "Hey, folks, these other precedents happen during the off season, so the school knew ahead of time that they weren't going to be in tournaments. You're doing it." In the middle of the most important season of all, the basketball season. How can you possibly in clear conscience do that? And me personally, I'd write a group letter to all the university presidents saying, you guys don't deserve to have jobs. Yeah, I'm mad. I am angry because it's so thoughtless. They say they're acting in the conference's interests and their own school's interests, but like I said, he who lives by it dies by it. It will be turned against him someday.
For Stony Brook right now, right? You maybe, you're a freshman a couple years ago, COVID cuts the season. You're a sophomore last year, and your championship game gets decided by a rainout. And you look forward to...
Oh, yeah. I mean, the American East stuck a knife in their back last year.
Look forward to junior year, and Stony Brook could go undefeated, and they won't even get a shot to...
if that extra year... extra COVID year you hope to have next year for the CAA, because at the very least then you'll be free of the America East. And the bridge is burned. Stony Brook should never have anything to do with the America East. I wouldn't even line up America East teams for non-conference schedule. I'd say Albany and Binghamton, you're dead to me. You betrayed me like that, you're dead to me. The hell with you.
Well, I'm going to say there's a couple of different points I think have been excellent here. Ken, I think you're absolutely right about allowing teams to play in the fall, but not allowing them to play in the winter and spring. Matt, I think it's a good point when you talk about they have to, I guess, and then this is their point of view and I don't agree with it, but they say if you let the basketball teams compete, then you have to let the spring teams compete. Right?
Okay, fine.
Now, the reason why they say no is because, let's face it, March Madness is, outside of the Super Bowl, the most watched event in American sports, right? So
right.
That
and most bet on
get in, and you're going to even more this year. But that is going to be the men and women potentially can get in, and that is such an eye popper for the athletic program, and that's got to be why they said no, because they don't want to be the lone team. That they don't want Stony Brook to be the lone team, which could occur to be both the men's and the women. Could you imagine if that occurred? If both the men and the women's team got the conference bid to the NCAA tournament for March Madness, and you were the highlight of it. What kind of an attraction that would be for Stony Brook, and that's what makes it so petty, right? Because you take it out of their hands for doing so. And I do think it's incredibly difficult now to shift gears as a coach, and get your team online to winning games. It's easier for the women's team because I think you could still maybe sell the girls on the or the women on the idea that you're going to get an at-large bid if you run the table and you're 20-2 or whatever. You would have the opportunity to get in that way. That has a long shot feel to it for us, but is it a reign of possible? I guess anything could happen, especially if you don't have upsets in conference play. But for the men, it's not an option, right? Then they're not going to win the regular season tournament. They don't have that kind of schedule right now, but they do have a team that would have a shot at winning the conference tournament in tournament play. And I think that would be a fun tournament to watch, right? And especially when you're Vermont going into it, it's supposed to be the class of the league. There's pressure in that as well too. That's the time when you see teams choke because they're the number one seed. So that's the pettiness involved in it, because you had two teams in the winter that could definitely make it. And let's be honest, I spoke to Rob Emmerich years ago about this, and he said that the acknowledgement of when the baseball team got to the College World Series and what that did for the school, both athletically but academically as well too, and the rise in the amount of students that applied to the school and the recognition of the school nationwide. Could you imagine if we had two basketball teams in the NCAA tournament and what that would do to the school as well? School
I mean,
it would be tremendous.
The one when we got in with Jameel Warney. Jameel Warney became a national name.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And people are still talking about him as a potential player. So, and that's, and the world's College World Series is not as watched as the NCAA. And let's be fair, although we love men's and women's lacrosse and women's softball, they're not as watched as those other events.
Oh, definitely not.
Right. So the men and the women making the tournament, it's a big deal for us. And it has some cachet in our regional area, but not like the College World Series, and certainly not like the NCAA tournament for basketball.
But here's the great thing about it is that, yes, the College World Series has a more specialized crowd, so to speak. But, when I got on the plane to Omaha, I ran into a bunch of people who make it an annual vacation trip for themselves. They go every year. So they fill that ballpark. It only holds about 26,000 or so, but still. It's a major league ballpark. It's about half capacity from a regular one. But the great thing about it is that there's nothing else going on in terms of college sports.
Right.
The College World Series is happening in the middle of June. So it's the only college sports of any kind going on. So that gave Stony Brook a huge boost. And yes, and Stony Brook started putting commercials and public service announcements on during the broadcast, bought ad time to to tell people who they were. But I remember as far back as 2008, and I remember telling Shirley Strum Kenny this, a few years back when she was leaving as president. I was at some party or something like that. But anyway, I said to her that, in the 2008 game notes for Arizona State, the first game in the tournament, there was a paragraph in it that said, "Where is Stony Brook?" And there was a big complaint among coaches, and several of them, it wasn't just one, that the calling ourselves Stony Brook University gives people no idea where we're from. If you remember when Buffalo got in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago, they wore uniforms that said State University and Big New York at Buffalo. So, people know where Buffalo is, obviously, but
right.
we should change the official name of the university is State University of New York at Stony Brook, but that doesn't fit on a uniform very well. So people would say, New York University, it can't be NYU. It's got to be some kind of New York in the name. That's what everybody wanted. But the College World Series run changed all that. And not only that, Stony Brook playing Oregon this past year changed all that. How many times on Twitter did you see, I didn't know Stony Brook had a football team, but they knew who Stony Brook was?
Right.
25. Yeah. And all agreed. And again, it sucks transitioning to the games that happened this week. We'll start with women's basketball just because again, the role they've been on. They had a tough, gritty win on Wednesday, 49-48. They were able to still get the victory. Big game, obviously, from their forwards in Leah Mori-Wool, Kenzie Boucher, both had 12 points. But the Saturday game that happened, that was a blowout end to end, and was, again, it was Stony Brook at their best, just smothering NJIT defensively.
Oh, that was a shot across the bow. There was you are not doing this again.
Yeah.
And when you hold your opponent down to single digits in 3 out of 4 quarters, it was a 1-point game after one, and then they just smothered them. I mean, 18-8 in the second, 26-6 in the third, and 18-9 in the fourth. Complete and utter domination. May be the most dominant game Stony Brook's played all year, and it was against the only team that beat him in the conference. So that was definitely a game that was meant to send a message to the rest of the conference, everybody. Number one, you're not rid of us yet, and number two, while we're around, we're going to beat you into the ground.
Yeah, and I thought the win over Binghamton, I think maybe things broke right for them that night, and that happens in basketball. And but they still made the plays down the stretch. Boucher with a nice shot, and then the rebound by Anastasia Warren to kind of cap off the game there.
Right.
But that's also the day that you find out that you might not be making it to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
and you
5
can
hours.
still muster. Yeah, and you could still muster up a win. But man, I can't agree with you anymore on, you're holding a team to 8, 6, and 9 points in the last 3 quarters. I mean, that is a sensational defense. I mean, that really is sending a message about how good you are and how athletic you are compared to everybody else.
On top of shooting 41% from the floor and knocking down 9 threes, which is the second time they've done that this season, where they shot at least, or third time this season where they've shot at least 9 threes. They were dominant in every facet. And, I feel especially bad for them just because of the role they've been on. And, they're going to have to keep it up to get recognition, whether it's in a WNIT or it's in, a long shot at getting a tournament bid. But yeah, all these women have really stepped it up. We know how good Warren is, Gonzalez, Leah Mori-Wool especially. She averaged a double-double on the week and just really knocked out the park there. India Pagan as well, down low, taking care of business. She had 11 points against NGIT. And, just for the women's team, I think the biggest difference between these two teams is just you see the team play and team effort really excel on the women's side. Men, and they had a couple tough losses this week. But, a lot of their offense comes from 1 or 2 players getting hot.
Yeah, and to jump from the women to the men, I think the women could use something like this to galvanize themselves. I think, when you have a thing like this occur to your team, it can either, bring you together or break you apart. I felt for the men on Wednesday. We called the game, and it was hard. It looked like it was hard for them. It was like they were kind of like got punched in the face even before the game started, and then they were just kind of up against it the whole night. The loss to NJIT could really be a tough one to get past because, it's 65-62, but the way you lose it, you tie the game on a layup from Rodriguez, right? And then after that, you let up a 3-point shot with 2 seconds left, and then your inbounds pass gets stolen. That is, I think, just devastating when something like that occurs. It's like could there be a lower moment, right? That you give a shot that the guy scores on a 3-pointer, and then your last shot it's taken away from you. And I think that's almost like how they must feel like their season is going as well too. Like it's gotten taken away from them, and those are hard to get over. The one thing that they do have, I think, that might be favorable to them is how quickly they turn around. Right? Are they playing tomorrow? Is that right?
They are. Yes, they are going to. Yeah, so, we have that game on tomorrow night. That's right.
Yes.
So I think that's 6:45 start.
Yes, so the short turnaround I think could be good for them. instead of waiting until Wednesday to play. I think that might actually be a good thing. That's probably like a COVID reschedule.
Well,
Yeah,
it is actually, yeah. But the other good thing about it, go ahead.
I do think for the men, the not going into the America East tournament, if that's how everything shakes out, can't mean the end of your season, though.
Well, we talked about this too with Jim Boeheim and Syracuse. He was able to keep the team competitive despite. But here's another thing: they had the NCAA ban again during the off season. They knew going in that they were not going to have a postseason, and they played their butts off anyway. And yes, they were definitely building for the longer term, saying that you're going to be right back at this next year, so you might as well not tank. You're still playing for your job type of thing. And you can, yes, make that ultimatum, I guess, or whatever you want to call it as a coach here. But the thing you want, first of all, is that losing sucks no matter what you do. Day to day, it's bad. And I had a nice little, not really an argument, but a discussion with a fellow reporter of mine, which is better to cover, a good team or a bad team as a reporter. I said good team by far, because you're not, you can, as a reporter, you can find stories everywhere. And look how much we spent half an hour on a very negative story. But negative stories weigh down on everybody. Negativity weighs down on everybody. So, at the very least, when you win, it's good for a day, and then you got to go right back to the grind and try to eke out another win. But the winning never hurts. Losing always does. So I think that's one thing that the Seawolves definitely want to do to right the ship, because New Hampshire's, at least in terms of the standings, right in it with them. They're only a game. They're only a game back. They're at 4-5, and you don't want to fall down too far. Hartford, as we said, is dead in the water. They're not going to be in Division I next year. They're 3-4. They're competing for a seed right now. So all these teams that the Seawolves would find a cakewalk, well, they're right there, right in the middle of the pack with them. Even Albany. So, you almost have to, go completely myopic. In my case, I'm nearsighted. All I have to do is take my glasses off to do that. So, you take your glasses off and you concentrate one game at a time. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. But even more so in this case, don't think about the long term. Let the administrators slug that out. And who knows? Maybe we do get an injunction and we're right back in it. But don't even hope for that. Just win the next game. And this New Hampshire could not be a more perfect example of the benefits of doing that. Win the next game. Don't worry about next week. Don't let the reporters and the administrators worry about that stuff. Just play. And that's one thing I think they can do. That's one thing I think the coaches are going to do in every sport. Just win the next game. Don't worry about it. Things will shake out in the end. Let the front office stuff. Now, again, we'll talk about this later on in the show when it comes to baseball. Okay, you got a whole bunch of stuff that's preventing anything from going on. But in this case, you're right in the middle of it. And if you do your job, you can't go wrong. Because even if you don't compete in the tournament, you're still going to have a good season. And you're still going to come out feeling good about yourselves. And the guys going to be there next year are going to be feeling good about themselves going into the CAA. So there's absolutely no downside to winning.
Yeah, and I think you're right about being very myopic about it. You focus on the 2 or 3 things that you need to do or improve upon, or where it went wrong for you to make yourselves win. Right? Okay, we got to be better at from the foul line. We've got to do a better job with our press, or defensively we got to get our rotations done. Whatever Coach Ford decides is the most important thing for them to do.
Shoot threes better.
They have to. Well, you may, yeah, and that's it.
Or don't shoot threes, or stop relying on them, or rely on them as a secondary offensive weapon, as we were saying. Kick the ball out.
For this game against New Hampshire, I think it'd be big for Stony Brook to shoot threes, because New Hampshire, they give up a lot of threes. 30% against them in the American East
But
Conference.
Stony Brook can't hit them.
Well, if they're able to figure out, then they win this game easy tomorrow. That's gonna be key for them.
Yeah, I think that it's funny. I heard this one time from I was on the sideline of a basketball game, and a coach said to the player, you keep shooting the threes. He goes, but I'm open all the time. And he goes, you ever wonder why they leave you open?
Yes, sadly, it's true. Stony Brook
Right.
ninth in the conference, only above UMass Lowell, shooting 32% from three. UMass Lowell shooting 28%, so it could be worse. But yeah, that's really been a big flaw for this team this season, was their inability to knock down threes.
Yeah, but I think the let's go back to the original point. Focus on what you can do. What you can do is win the game, and if you win the game, even dinner's going to taste better that night. Like that, wherever you're stopping for your food, that's going to taste better.
Usually it's Eastside dining, from what I see.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? That's what you want. Like, so, but that'll be the best dinner you've had in a week and a half, right?
Yeah.
That's what they've got to they have in front of them, and frankly the women as well too. The women, they're feeling good about themselves. Continue to feel good about yourselves. You're doing the right thing. You're winning games. You're playing hard. You're playing good team basketball.
Yeah.
Continue
all
to
around
do so.
too.
And the other thing that's most important about it is that, in terms of the talent level, except for that now it's proven to be a fluke after what they did to him yesterday. The important thing here is that you are way more talented than anybody else in the conference. I mean, if Joe Spallina is talking to his team, he's saying, I don't expect you to lose a game in the America East this year either,
Right.
because no one can play on the same field as you. You are that much better, that much more talented. Maybe somebody gets lucky, but
they haven't lost conference games since 2015.
Right, and there's no reason they should this year either.
So I took an opportunity and I looked at the spring sports and kind of made a decision on, or in my mind, what I thought was important enough for them to get into the tournament get into the NCAA tournament without having a conference championship to play for. And, you go team by team, and the easiest one is women's lacrosse, right? Run the table in the America East. But then you've got number 3 Syracuse, number 4 Northwestern, number 10 Florida, number 13 Princeton. You don't have to win all of those games, but if you win 3 out of 5, or
this schedule,
4 out of 5,
it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. Joe Spallina put this schedule together so that he can essentially win without the America East. Because the America East, everybody just says it isn't any good. Of course you beat everybody up. Of course you won eight titles in a row, because they're not in the same league as you. Okay, fine. So, and then they say you don't play anybody. We don't play anybody. Florida, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Princeton, and so on and so forth. And you can come back at them and say, well, we play people and we beat them, therefore. And the women's lacrosse team is so far ahead of the rest of the America East in terms of talent. The only thing the America East can do is hurt them by a surprise win somewhere. The real proof of the pudding, I think, for the women's schedule is it's going to start on Sunday, February 20th at Syracuse, number 3. Of course, they did play yesterday a scrimmage against Virginia, but of course it doesn't count. But the important thing here is they hit the ground running. They start off at Syracuse, and then the following Sunday they're home against Dartmouth. That's their opener. And then Saturday, Florida. The following Thursday, less than a week, Northwestern. Then the following Sunday, Johns Hopkins. Okay, so it's a gauntlet. This is going to be the toughest part of their schedule that they've faced outside of an NCAA tournament, maybe in their history.
I like the way that they've got set up the scrimmage yesterday, and then they go 2 weeks of practice before they go into the gauntlet. I think that's a good move by Coach Spallina to do something like that, because it gives you a lot of time to get practice in and to work on stuff that got exposed when you played Virginia. The other thing, as far as them making it to the NCAA tournament, that I saw as well too, is they have the advantage of being successful the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. And because of that, they're preseason number 6 in both the Inside Lacrosse and the IWLCA, which is the Women's Coaches Association poll as well too. So it's not one of these situations where they have to get into national prominence. They're there already. They just have to stay there.
Oh, so they got to stay there. That's the big thing.
Yeah. But I think that's easier than having to get on the radar, because then they could slide a little bit, but still, because they were 6, they could still get in because of the notoriety, the recognition.
Well, here's the other thing too. Barring a loss someplace, okay, they will stay there or move up higher as long as they win. So if they run the table, how do you knock them off? Well, you can say, well, they don't have an automatic qualifier. How do you, let's say, for example, let's say they do run the table, or they have, or they lose to a Syracuse or a Northwestern, okay, and they have one loss all year long, and they can't play in the America East tournament, yet they're top 10 in the country, or maybe even top 5 in the country, maybe even number 1. How do you, if you're the selection committee, pass over them saying that they didn't compete in their conference tournament, therefore they don't have their automatic qualifier? How do you pass over them then? How do you, first of all, it's beyond their control. They didn't decide to back out. First of all, that's another thing that has to be made painfully clear to everyone. Stony Brook did not decide to pull out of the tournament. There wasn't a precondition. Okay, it wasn't a hard and fast rule. If you leave the conference, you cannot compete in the tournament in your final year. No, it's put to a vote, which yes, I'd like to be in the room where that happened, where the invitation came out. Did anybody say, what if the America East does this? I'm wondering how much they knew ahead of time that this was going to happen, because some believe, and some people, like Steve Marcus of Newsday, believe they did know. And they did know this was going to happen, but we're willing to take their chances. And lose the postseason, because, as we said last week, as we said during the broadcast the other day, Greg, the books were open, and you have to make your move when the books are open. So there's a lot of skullduggery going on here that either A, don't understand, or B, decry anyway.
Right. You're sacrificing the now for the later with potentially that decision. The one thing I will say about women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse as well, too, because of how COVID has changed everything and people are more open to adding games, you could see a situation where, because you're not playing in the conference tournament, you maybe add a game at the end of your season because you're not playing. It would be almost like put a big time team at the end of your conference play. You're not playing the next week anyway. What's the difference?
Well, you got to find somebody that's not playing a conference tournament too, which is
hey, JMU's open. That's a good idea.
There you go.
JMU, Stony Brook, and you have your own series.
The reject ball.
But you have an opportunity to do that. Is there a conference that doesn't have an automatic qualifier, or whatever it is, and you can add a team in? That's just kind of throwing it out there. Now, Matt, I think for you, the question, because you know baseball the best out of us here, I took a look at them, and they've got 53 games on their schedule, 30 conference games and 23 non-conference games. Now, their non-conference games that they have that are just kind of scattered amongst their schedule are Iona, Sacred Heart, LIU, Fordham, Manhattan, Fairfield, Hofstra. Their non-conference series are McNeese State, Florida, South Florida, Western Carolina, and Old Dominion. Not knowing baseball as well, if they win the America East regular season and win those series, and then win a lot of those, non-conference singleton games that they have, even though I think they play Iona at Manhattan twice, and maybe Fairfield and Sacred Heart twice, but not consecutively, not in a series situation. Is that enough for them?
No. First of all, here's the big problem with baseball. Baseball, their biggest killer as far as the first part of the season is concerned, is that they never expect to win in the early part of the season because it's just basically tune-up for the conference schedule. The way Matt Senk sets up his schedule, he puts up some very tough teams, but he's not putting together any cream puffs in there. He's basically going south to tune his team up. So these teams they usually come out of the non-conference schedule with a losing record. The exceptions were those years, 2011, 2012, when they were, national contenders. But for the most part, they get beat up pretty good. And there are two reasons why. Number one, yes, they're going up against teams that, first of all, start earlier. They play down south. They play in warm weather. They play more games. And they're generally in more powerful conferences. But the games, even though they count in the overall record, mean nothing to the Seawolves because their main stage is the America East. That's not the case anymore. Now they got to win those games a little bit.
Right.
But here's the thing: is that Old Dominion, when they get into the America East, it gets a little. Remember, they had a tough time in the America East in recent years, too. They didn't win it. Okay, NJIT battled with them till the very end. So the non-conference schedule mattered even less. It's definitely the opposite scenario to what the women's lacrosse team has in that they made their non-conference schedule tougher because their conference schedule was so easy. It's a delicate balance, and I remember discussing this with Coach Senk many years ago because there was one year in particular where they got beat up really bad in the non-conference schedule, so that demoralized the team to the point where we had to build them back up for the America East. And he said that was tough. You want a little bit more balance. You want, if they go 500 in the non-conference, that's great, and you're geared up and ready to go. Because the other thing that he uses it for, he uses it kind of like the midweek games in the regular season, in the America East season, which are non-conference, as a tune-ups, as opportunities to go deeper into the pitching staff and see who can come up as a possible fourth starter if needed, and things like that, or give the freshmen some innings and stuff if they're not among the three for the 3-man weekend rotation, things like that to get people work, or try different guys, different positions, or different places in the batting order, or get people work who need it. So the conference games are paramount in both baseball and softball. They are the ones, I think, outside obviously men's basketball, are going to suffer most because
Agreed.
They live and die by the America East schedule.
Agreed. And those for sure, softball, baseball too, for forever, they've been one bid conferences, it's going to take a real miracle for both of those teams, I think, to get, at-large bid, as Greg, as you put it, they're going to have to essentially, dominate the regular season and win essentially every series. And just fundamentally, that's just next to impossible.
Yeah, and 53 games is, you just don't go undefeated. You just don't win 53 games. That just
they're likely not even going to play every game. Weather, games, right, as well as potential COVID precautions.
But that's the other thing. The other reason why they schedule McNeese stays in Louisiana, obviously. University of South Florida is in Tampa. Right. Okay. Funny thing though is that there's a little blip in the schedule where I hope we were able to cover it. Stony Brook versus Sacred Heart, their home opener, March 2nd, Wednesday, weather permitting, at Joe Nathan Field. They come up from Tampa, play that game on Wednesday, and go right back down to Cullowhee, North Carolina, to take on Western Carolina for a 3-game set. And then come right back up on Tuesday, and then to play LIU at Joe Nathan Field. Have a little stopover at Fordham next day, and then right back down to Norfolk, Virginia to take on Old Dominion. So, and then they stay up north for the rest of the season. But it's a little bit different from the past where they'd spend the first month of the season down south.
Yeah, I just can't get over the amount of travel that that baseball does, and also it really is such a manager's game because you are rotating, like you're saying, like this guy's going to get innings now, this guy needs to sit, this guy. I never realized as an athlete, because I didn't play baseball, how important that is for players, getting the rest on the right day, getting your swings on the right day, getting your innings in, whatever it might be, and how big of a deal that is for baseball players. Because in a lot of sports, like in basketball, you're playing.
I remember John Franco. Remember with the Mets, right?
Yes. Yep.
Franco. I remember this is the first season I covered. It was 1996, and Dallas Green was making a mess of everything with the pitching staff, and he didn't use Franco for 7 days. And Franco comes in, gets beat up a little bit because Franco was the type of guy who needed his work, because if he was too fresh, his ball would be too high and get hit. So that's what happened. So, I mean, he purposely interjected a few curses, 7 bleeping days, which means I couldn't use the cuts for radio.
Mm-hmm.
But you do not sit your starter for 7 days. You find a place to put him because he doesn't keep well.
Right. Yeah.
He gets stale. So you gotta be careful. That also goes now. Of course, is the other extreme, which Joe Torre was known for, where he relied on the same 3 guys and just burn their arms out. But
right, yeah.
I mean, it was a real miracle that Mike Stanton and Jeff Nelson stuck around and were as consistently good as they were for as long as they were. Because if you take a look at their baseball reference pages and take a look at the number of appearances they had as Yankees, it's amazing. But they worked because they were. I mean, the reason why Torre used them is because they were effective.
Because they could, could do it.
And they can consistently effective too. That's another thing that I think that as the years go by, people forget about that team is that they had guys on that team that could do things and do things year in, year out, like Mariano Rivera, that no other team could match. I mean, the Boston Red Sox won 4 championships with 4 different closers.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and just quickly, because we're going to be touching on baseball in a minute, but before that, talking about Stony Brook hockey, it's on a projected schedule for sure. They just wrapped up a weekend split against URI, and Stony Brook currently leading the ESCHL conference standings by 1 point over Rhode Island. Both teams secured playoff spot, but it's Stony Brook that has the top seed right now. And Matt, obviously, you're going to be part of that game Friday. We're projecting. How big is that game against Drexel? A reschedule from last month, and instead of a 2-game series, it's only 1 game Friday night against a struggling Drexel team.
And it's going to be an interesting weekend because it is the only game that weekend. Because for the rest of the season, the playoffs start the following week. The ESCHL playoffs, February 18th and 19th, opponents at times TBA. The Iceline Quad Rings, and I wish I could tell us where that is, but it could decide the top seed, and it's also a game where, Stony Brook has had its difficulties with Drexel. They split last time they faced each other, and it was a home-and-home split way back in November. But they beat them 9-2 at the rinks and then lost to them in Philadelphia. So it's going to be and they're coming off this. Yet they lost one. This is amazing about these weekend back-to-backs. They blank Liberty and then get beat by them 6-4 the next day. They destroy Rhode Island and get blanked by them the next day. So they're very fortunate that it's not a weekend series, that it's only 1 game. And I think they're going to come out with their best game as a result. But still, Drexel's going to be tough. And Drexel's playing for the same stakes as Stony Brook is.
Yeah, they're currently tied with NYU, too, for that 4. They both have 14 points. So for Drexel, it's essentially win and you're in. Because they're going to need to win. Because NYU, they have... Let me just make sure I have this right. I believe they have the record differential as well as the goal differential, which I think is the bigger factor determining tiebreakers. Wins against ECHL opponents are first, and then head-to-head record, and then goal differential. And it looks like NYU leads Drexel in that. So for Drexel, this could be game of the season and just adds more fire to those Flames against Stony Brook. And as you said, a series where they split last time.
Yeah, and you know what? I was looking at the box score today for the game, and it looked like they had outshot Rhode Island today as well too. Something like 42-39. And
yesterday,
just couldn't find yesterday, excuse me, but just couldn't find the back of the net there. So it's an intriguing game as well too, because both teams have something to play for. So it's not like Dressel's coming up with nothing going on. You know, where's their mindset of just trying to finish up the season? They're coming in with something going on. I think the interesting piece as well too is that it's it's alumni and senior night for the Seawolves as well too, which I think brings an added kind of piece to it as well. You know, interestingly enough, so that rescheduled game kind of becoming extremely important right now.
Absolutely. You know, Stony Brook lost, they fall to the 2 seed and end up playing Delaware, who's pretty much confirmed to be the 3 seed. And if they beat Drexel, obviously they're out, so they'll be facing the 4 seed in NYU. And from there, again, you see that level of competition where really you have a 3-horse race between Stony Brook, Rhode Island, and Delaware to win that ESCHL championship. And really, any one of those 3 teams could do it. You know, Stony Brook, too, their hot start tapering. But also, as well, just something interesting from the weekend was that their usual goaltender in Matvey Kazakov, and we don't have a reason why, could be rest, could potential injury. We didn't notice any last time out. But, you know, his health is crucial for the success Stony Brook will find this postseason, because he has been their star goaltender. And
without him, they are toast. By the way, WUSB Stony Brook, top of the hour. Keep going.
I was saying, it's not a slight at Thomas Sullivan. He had a good game Saturday, 38 of 39 saves, but he's only played in 4 or 5 games this season.
And I mean, if he gets help in front of him, they'll be okay. But Kazakov has been phenomenal. Yeah,
that's the thing too. And we were speaking with Jake Basile about it, the usual commentator for Stony Brook hockey, and you know, he noted that, you know, as good as the defense has been, having guys like Brandon Pepe, for example, you know, be there leading the defense. You know, when they get beat, Kazakov is there to step up more often than not. He does a great job just utilizing his body and contorting to where the puck's coming and stopping those shots, because they don't make it easy for him when defense gets beat. And again, it was that Liberty series that I thought he looked his worst, but he was able to kind of rectify it last time out, getting that split. But yeah, as you said, his health is going to be key, as well as some of the other key players like Pepe, as you said.
Put it this way, he gave up only 2 goals all weekend.
Exactly.
And the fact that the Seals didn't score already in the second game is not his fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, Matt, I think you brought up a good point that it's a singleton game. It's not a back-to-back game. It's incredibly difficult to play hockey, and it must be unbelievably difficult to go back-to-back. You know, I just can't see how you can ramp up that kind of energy and that kind of effort 2 nights in a row.
Yeah, that pressure. You know, yeah, no, I agree. That pressure is going to be there, especially, you know, this weekend, Saturday. Of course, it's going to be the only game, the last game of the regular season. And it's going to determine the outlook of who controls the momentum heading into next week's playoff games.
Now, is it the games are going to be the 18th and 19th? Is that what you're saying? Is that weekend, 18th to the 21st, or 18th, 19th, 20th for the?
The weekend after this coming one.
Wow, so that's going to be, you know, another brutal weekend there for them, you know, just play wise to do something like that. But they'll be super excited about it because they're going to be going into a shot, Absolutely. You know, playoff shot for them. So, and then I think if you just wanted to jump back to the non-America East thing, and if I can get the men's lacrosse in there, I looked at their schedule as well too, and I kind of felt like, you know, they really have to run the table, not go undefeated. I thought if they went 12-2, be the regular season champs for the America East, and they got to have a good showing against Syracuse and Rutgers, who are both, you know, top 10 teams. Mm-hmm. And if they can do that, and in some of those conference tournaments, you don't have an upset, like the Big Ten doesn't have an upset. Where you have a team or the CAA doesn't have an upset. Now you get 2 teams in from the CAA. Then I think that they have a shot, because it wasn't too long ago when Albany had the Thompsons and they were so good, and Stony Brook was really good as well too, and they wound up dipping off at the end of the season. They lost a game, I think, to Marist that really kind of knocked them out. But there was the talk amongst the lacrosse circles saying Stony Brook has a shot of making it to the NCAA tournament, even without winning the conference, because they're that good, and Albany is that good as well too. It was a year that it could be a 2-team conference that makes it to the NCAA tournament. So you got to have that kind of year as well too from the America East, where you got a couple dominant teams, and you happen to beat them.
And it's going to be tougher too, because last year, at least, Stony Brook was ranked for a lot of the season, and they couldn't advance into the NCAA tournament. And even though they were ranked, and the reason for that was because the Ivy Leagues didn't play last spring. Now they're coming back, so now they're getting a spot, and they're probably going to take away a couple of spots as well from those teams that snuck in last year. So you're going to have to play even harder, against the competition and really dominate, especially on the attack. Which again, Coach Ghilardi, his teams don't really have that problem. His team was scoring 15, 16 plus goals every other game essentially up till the very end. But yeah, they start this Saturday at home against Fairfield, and they're going to have a great showing, I think, to really foot like they did last year and show, the voters and the rest of the NCAA that there's that potential that the American East could be a 2-bid team, 2-bid conference at the end of the season.
Well, here's the thing. That second bid would, first of all, Vermont's picked to win. Okay, let's say, for example, Vermont and Albany end up in the final, and Albany pulls one out. And shouldn't the second bid go to Vermont? Why should it go to Stony Brook? They didn't compete in the tournament. This is going to be what the selection committee is thinking.
Yeah, I think the only way it happens is if Stony Brook is the regular season champ, the undefeated regular season champ. I think that's the only way it occurs. And my guess would be Vermont would be the other team as well too. Although I think in the America East, it's very balanced with the men's lacrosse. There's a handful of teams that could win it. So I don't see. You could say Vermont could win it. I could see Stony Brook winning it. I could see UMBC winning it. I could see, it could happen. You could see Albany winning it as well too. Although I think they may be a little bit past their I don't want to say past their prime, but they got to get it back rolling again. But you understand the point I'm going for here is that I think you really have to see Stony Brook be undefeated. That's the position you're putting them in by not allowing them into the America East playoffs. So, and Ken, I think you bring up a good point about the Ivy League not participating, and therefore there are at least 2 teams in the I would imagine there are at least 2 teams in the NCAA tournament from the Ivy League.
That's an important thing too, and there's not going to be enough room. That's how tight it gets. Yeah, it takes me back. Okay, and this Hofstra fans will remember this. Who remember far back 20 years. You remember, Greg, their first year in the America East, as after Hofstra left for the CAA. The CAA did not have an automatic qualifier, if I recall correctly, because I don't believe they had enough schools in it yet. That when Hofstra and Drexel and Delaware jumped, they lost the shot at the automatic qualifier because the America East retained the automatic qualifier. So because they took on Binghamton, Albany, and Stony Brook, and they were good from that point of view. So they're saying the America East doesn't deserve the automatic qualifier because they lost all those schools. Stony Brook ends up winning it. They get in. Hofstra does not. Hofstra had the better team that year, no question about it. But Stony Brook got in. That was their first NCAA tournament appearance in their first year in conference play. They had the ECAC Lacrosse League prior to that, where they won only one game. That was against UMBC, who joined them in the America East the following year. So it was, there was a lot of confusion there and a lot of anger on Hofstra's part that they could have easily, if they were in the America East, they could have gotten the AQ, but nothing doing. So I'm trying to get the story down because it was 20 years ago. I don't remember everything. But in any case, the problem that you have here is that You have Stony Brook is considered a good team in the America East. It's not the only good team in the America East. And the America East also is not considered a subpar conference in lacrosse, in either men's or women's. Okay, women's, they may knock it because Stony Brook is so much better than everybody else. But you got Stony Brook, you got Albany, you got Vermont, you got UMBC. Okay, and Hartford was competitive, and they may still yet be. They may still have some people there. But you have a very competitive conference where, it would be some people may view it as unfair to give an automatic bid to a team that was not tested in tournament play, and it would take something. Not only would it have to run the table in the America East Conference, I think, but they'd have to do it with domination. I mean, they would have to win by big scores. No 10-9s in there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. They'd have to win the games handily. I don't think they'd have to blow everybody out, but it would have to be a 14-10 victory where you're like, well, I guess that's a good win for Stony Brook, things of that nature. I would agree with that. That's a really good point.
Oh, by the way, this is something that we should bring up. Everybody talks about Dylan Palinetti, and we're going to be talking a lot about him as the season goes on. But his brother Ryan has joined the team, transferring from Franklin and Marshall. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yes,
I saw that on the
that's great.
Well.
I mean, he's actually a year older, but he was a two-time New York State champion at Ward Melville, and he is has two siblings, Dylan and Brooke. He has a sister and brother is on the Stony Brook lacrosse team, and I'd like to see them on the field together.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I think what you do when you have something like that, when you bring a guy in from Ward Melville, just in general, number one, they've been coached. Number two, they know how to play and they know how to win, right? And I think that kind of like galvanizes things as well too. And then you got brothers playing together. I think that's always a good thing.
Well, the Thompsons, my God, you put all three of them out there, and they basically have sixth senses for each other on the field.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And it just kind of like and then there's something, and we don't see this, we don't feel this, we don't know this because we're not there, but there's a locker room piece to that as well too. That a brother can talk to a brother in a certain way and get a point across that somebody else might not be able to.
This is also very true. But I remember, and Ken remembers this too because he was singing on the interviews with me, that when we were talking to Coach Gilardi last year, and in Palinetti's first year, where he won every award that could be won. I mean, he was Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year, only player to ever do that in America East history. But we're saying, when does this become Dylan Palinetti's team? And do you see any hesitation on Palinetti's part to, let's say, take it over because he just got there? And that's going to be the next question, because we were talking to him on Tuesday prior to the season starting. And that's definitely going to be a question I'm asking him. Is this now Dylan Palinetti's team, and what's his role going to be? And because he has the ability, like few other players have, to basically take over a game.
He really does. He's an excellent player, but he is captain of this year's team. So
this is also true.
You're starting to get the answer for that. And I also think, when you play like that, it's an interesting piece. When you play like the way he plays, he's a go-to guy. He really did everything for him in a lot of ways last year. You kind of just expect him to take that next role, but they do have, I think, 4 or 5 captains. So it almost could be a captain in training situation, where you've got some older guys that are leaders of the team, and he can kind of like learn how to be a leader of the team. And when they leave, he becomes, as a junior, becomes really almost like the sole captain of the team. Even if you have other guys that are captains, he becomes the captain of the captain, because I think that occurs on teams.
Well, the other great thing you have going for you here is that the team is young. I mean, Wayne White's a grad. The big names everybody remembers. Matt DeMeo is a grad, and also Mike Fiorentino, writing down the list of guys. The seniors, Anthony Palma is a senior in goal, and but not too many other guys. Mostly underclassmen. So you're bringing in, first of all, Anthony Laurie's first class of recruits, but also you're seeing what's going to be the team that's going to compete in the CAA, and I think you're going to be seeing much more of it, especially if it is a dead issue that the Seawolves will not have a shot at anything, and they're going to be putting together their CAA squad over the course of this year because they know it's going to be an upgrade in competition, and they have guys who are up to the task, but the more experience they get now, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having the older guys around that have played in other locations, because they do have a bunch of guys that are transferred in and they've played somewhere else. I think that's going to pay dividends as well, too, because you're going to have guys who know how to play, know how to get ready, know how to prepare. And that's just going to rub off on the younger guys. Like, this is what the older guys are doing, then I should be ready for it. And I think that is not only the guys that have been on your team for 3 or 4 years, but it's also guys that have played at another place. Well, this guy played at, and now he's here, and then, he knows what he's doing, right? He wouldn't be there if he didn't. Like a Matt DeMeo, I think would be a great example to that, right? Like, he's a guy that knows how to practice. He's a guy that knows how to prepare. He did it at SUNY Maritime. He came here and had an impact last year. You watch him practice, you watch him get ready. That's what I should do. And that's what you do when you're an underclassman, and that prepares you for the CAA.
Yeah, and again, I don't necessarily think that the CAA is a step up in terms of competition. I will not deny that. But I will also say it's not a dramatic step up. That the American East has been pretty good for a long time. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was going to say 100% agree with all of that. It's going to be fun to see new faces that are going to step up for both these programs.